Welcome to the Inspiring Illustrations channel. Why Jesus' teachings are the ultimate guide to mental health. Imagine a world where every one of us achieves emotional balance and inner peace, even amidst the most overwhelming challenges. For many, this might seem unattainable, but what if the answers to a more balanced life have been hidden in words spoken over 2,000 years ago? The teachings of Jesus, beyond serving as a spiritual foundation for millions, hold profound insights that address universal mental struggles such as fear, anxiety, and the search for purpose. Today, we are facing an alarming rise in mental health issues. Anxiety, depression, and feelings of being lost are common realities for people of all ages. However, the teachings of Jesus offer refuge and practical solutions. His words are not merely spiritual advice, they serve as a manual for a resilient and balanced life. By understanding and applying these teachings to our lives, we discover a path to overcome fears, find strength in storms, and achieve true peace of mind. In this video, we will explore how the words of Jesus not only inspire but also transform. Over 12 chapters, we will delve into topics such as the power of forgiveness, the importance of gratitude, the pursuit of purpose, and the strength found in prayer. We will see how each teaching is timeless, applicable to modern challenges, and incredibly practical. So get ready for a journey that will connect your mind and spirit, helping you navigate the emotional challenges of life with resilience and faith. Before we dive deeper, we invite you to subscribe to our channel, share this video with friends, and activate notifications. By doing so, you will stay updated on all our transformative content. Now let us dive into this first chapter, which will lay the foundation for understanding why the teachings of Jesus are the ultimate guide to mental health. The idea that the words of Jesus have practical relevance to mental health might surprise some people. After all, we often associate his teachings solely with spirituality or moral behavior. However, a closer examination reveals something remarkable. Each teaching contains psychological principles that, when applied, have the power to shape our thoughts, behaviors, and most importantly, our perspective on life. This becomes even more relevant as we address mental health issues in modern times. For instance, many people are caught in a continuous cycle of anxiety. The future feels uncertain, and societal pressures only intensify. Jesus addressed this in a practical way when he said not to worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring its own concerns. This teaching, recorded in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 34, is an invitation to practice living in the present moment, something modern psychologists recognize as essential for reducing anxiety. Additionally, the teachings of Jesus often emphasize the importance of trusting in something greater than ourselves. He encouraged his followers to cast their burdens on God, a practice that, in contemporary language, aligns with the concept of surrender and acceptance. Studies in mental health reveal that trusting in a higher power can significantly reduce stress and the feeling of being overwhelmed. In this way, the teachings of Jesus speak not only to our spirituality, but also to the fundamental needs of a mind seeking balance. Another significant point is how Jesus addressed the theme of individual value. In a time when many struggle with self-esteem issues, he reaffirmed the intrinsic worth of every person. Passages like "You are more valuable than many sparrows," found in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 12, verse 7, show how his message serves as a powerful antidote to feelings of inadequacy and low self-worth. Recognizing our value as loved and accepted beings brings a sense of purpose and dignity, strengthening our mental health. As we proceed with this video, you will see how these ideas form the foundation of a transformative approach to life. They not only offer us hope but also provide practical tools for navigating the emotional and spiritual complexities of the modern world. Let us now move to the next chapter, where we will explore the enduring relevance of these teachings for the challenges we face today. The timeless relevance of Jesus' teachings. The teachings of Jesus have withstood the test of time, resonating with millions over centuries. But why are they still so impactful in today's fast-paced, stress-filled society? To answer this, we must examine how his principles address not just spiritual concerns but the core of human existence, our mental, emotional, and relational struggles. Modern life is marked by relentless demands, creating overwhelming stress and anxiety. Many individuals feel trapped in cycles of perfectionism, competition, and comparison. Jesus' teachings challenge this mindset by promoting simplicity, contentment, and trust. His words, recorded in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 11, verse 28, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest," extend an invitation to step away from the chaos and find true peace. This is not just spiritual advice, but a profound mental health practice. One of the reasons these teachings remain relevant is their universality. The principles of forgiveness, compassion, gratitude, and resilience are as applicable today as they were 2,000 years ago. Take, for example, Jesus' command to forgive 70 times 7 times, found in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 18, verse 22. While this was originally a moral directive, modern psychology reveals its mental health benefits. Forgiveness reduces stress, improves relationships, and promotes overall well-being. Another striking aspect of Jesus' teachings is their emphasis on living a purpose-driven life. In a world where people often feel aimless or disconnected, his message offers direction. He encouraged his followers to seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, promising that all things will be added to them. This perspective, recorded in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 33, aligns with modern ideas about goal setting and prioritization. It reminds us to focus on what truly matters, helping to eliminate distractions and anxiety. Furthermore, Jesus' teachings provide a roadmap for handling interpersonal challenges. Conflict and misunderstanding are inevitable in relationships, yet his principles of humility, empathy, and love for one's enemies offer transformative solutions. For instance, turning the other cheek, as mentioned in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 39, is not about passivity but about breaking the cycle of retaliation. This approach fosters emotional intelligence, which is crucial for healthy relationships and mental stability. Today's culture often glorifies busyness, leaving little room for reflection or spiritual growth. Jesus' example of withdrawing to solitary places to pray teaches us the importance of solitude and mindfulness. This habit, practiced regularly, can improve focus, reduce stress, and enhance overall mental clarity. His life exemplifies how balancing activity with intentional rest can lead to a more centered and fulfilling existence. The enduring relevance of these teachings is also evident in their ability to bridge the gap between faith and science. Research increasingly supports the mental health benefits of practices like gratitude, meditation, and forgiveness, principles that Jesus emphasized long before they became mainstream. By integrating these teachings into daily life, individuals can experience profound changes in their emotional and psychological well-being. As we progress through this journey, it becomes clear that Jesus' words are not just ancient wisdom but practical tools for navigating life's challenges. They inspire us to embrace hope, build resilience, and cultivate inner peace. In the next chapter, we will delve deeper into one of his most transformative principles, forgiveness, and how it shapes our mental and emotional health. The transformative power of forgiveness in Jesus' teachings. Forgiveness stands as one of the central pillars of Jesus' teachings, presented not merely as a moral directive, but as an essential pathway to emotional and spiritual liberation. In today's world, where grudges and resentment often poison relationships and mental health, Jesus' call to forgiveness resonates more powerfully than ever. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 18, verse 22, Jesus responds to Peter, who asks how many times he should forgive his brother. Up to 70 times 7. This number is not to be understood literally, but symbolizes the boundless nature of forgiveness. This guidance transcends human limitations, encouraging the continuous and deliberate practice of forgiving. While forgiveness may seem like a concession to the offender, Jesus teaches that it is, above all, a gift to the one who forgives. Modern studies confirm the positive impact of forgiveness on mental and physical health. Holding on to grudges is associated with increased stress, elevated blood pressure, and even a higher risk of cardiovascular disease. Conversely, practicing forgiveness reduces stress, improves sleep quality, and promotes overall well-being. Jesus deeply understood this connection long before modern science could validate it. The parable of the unmerciful servant, found in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 18, verses 23 through 35, is a powerful example of Jesus' teachings on forgiveness. In this story, a servant is forgiven an astronomical debt by his master, but refuses to forgive a much smaller debt owed by a fellow servant. The result is a stern warning about the importance of reflecting the mercy we have received. Jesus uses this parable to emphasize that forgiveness is both a spiritual and a practical responsibility. However, forgiveness is often misunderstood. It does not mean minimizing the severity of an offense or ignoring the impact of pain. Instead, forgiveness allows victims to release emotional burdens, reject cycles of revenge, and move forward. Jesus exemplified this in a sublime way as he cried out from the cross, as recorded in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 23, verse 34, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." This act of extreme forgiveness demonstrates that even in the most challenging circumstances, we can choose peace. Practicing forgiveness is not easy. It often requires an internal struggle, a conscious choice, and in some cases, the repetition of this act until the heart is fully free. But Jesus teaches that forgiveness is a process, not a one-time event. He encourages his followers to seek God's help on this path, recognizing that genuine forgiveness comes from a higher power. Beyond personal impact, forgiveness transforms relationships and communities. In a world divided by conflicts, historical grievances, and personal disputes, the willingness to forgive can break down barriers and heal deep wounds. Jesus knew that by encouraging his followers to forgive, he was planting the seeds of reconciliation and unity, creating the foundation for a more compassionate society. As we explore Jesus' teachings on forgiveness, it becomes impossible to ignore the connection between this practice and emotional resilience. Forgiving does not erase pain, but helps redirect it toward growth. It teaches us to respond to suffering with grace instead of bitterness. This shift in perspective is fundamental to finding inner peace amidst challenges. The healing practice of gratitude in Jesus' teachings. Gratitude is a transformative force that plays a vital role in Jesus' teachings. While it may appear as a simple act, gratitude is deeply rooted in spiritual and psychological well-being. In a world often overshadowed by dissatisfaction and comparison, Jesus' consistent emphasis on thankfulness provides a roadmap to finding joy and contentment in all circumstances. One of the most powerful examples of gratitude is found in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 17, verses 11 through 19. In this story, Jesus heals 10 lepers, but only one, a Samaritan, returns to give thanks. Jesus acknowledges the gratitude of this one man and remarks on the absence of the other 9, emphasizing that thankfulness is not just a polite response but a profound act of faith. This story highlights that gratitude is about recognizing God's blessings and the transformational power they bring into our lives. From a psychological perspective, gratitude reshapes the way we view the world. Studies have shown that practicing gratitude can lower stress, increase happiness, and improve physical health. Gratitude shifts focus from what is lacking to what is abundant, creating a mindset of sufficiency and hope. Jesus' teachings encourage this perspective, reminding us that even in moments of lack, we can acknowledge God's provision and goodness. Jesus himself modeled gratitude in pivotal moments of his ministry. Before feeding the multitude with just 5 loaves and 2 fish, as recorded in the Gospel of John, chapter 6, verse 11, Jesus gave thanks. This act was not merely symbolic, it demonstrated trust in God's provision. By expressing gratitude before the miracle occurred, Jesus taught his followers to have faith even when resources seem insufficient. Gratitude, in this sense, becomes an act of faith, a declaration that God's grace is enough. Gratitude also acts as a bridge in relationships, fostering connections and mutual respect. When Jesus gave thanks during the Last Supper, as recorded in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 22, verse 19, he demonstrated the importance of gratitude in community. Sharing a meal with his disciples, Jesus acknowledged God's blessings even in the shadow of his imminent sacrifice. This moment underscores that gratitude is not just about individual reflection, but also about creating bonds of love and unity. However, cultivating gratitude requires intentionality. In today's fast-paced and often critical world, it is easy to overlook small blessings. Jesus' teachings invite us to pause, reflect, and acknowledge even the simplest gifts, a sunrise, a shared laugh, or the provision of daily bread. This practice trains the heart to see God's presence in all aspects of life, fostering resilience against negativity and despair. Gratitude is also a powerful antidote to envy and entitlement. Jesus' parable of the workers in the vineyard, found in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 20, verses 1 through 16, illustrates this point. In the story, laborers hired at different times of the day all receive the same wage. While some grumble, Jesus emphasizes that gratitude for what is given, rather than comparison with others, is the key to contentment. Through gratitude, we can reframe challenges as opportunities for growth. Jesus demonstrated this during moments of trial, such as before his crucifixion, when he gave thanks to God. This profound gratitude, even in suffering, teaches us to find strength and meaning in adversity. It reveals that gratitude is not dependent on circumstances, but is a choice rooted in faith. As we explore Jesus' teachings on gratitude, it becomes evident that this practice has the power to transform our outlook on life. Gratitude nurtures humility, strengthens relationships, and fosters resilience. It shifts the focus from scarcity to abundance, helping us to see the world through the lens of grace. The transformative power of prayer in Jesus' teachings. Prayer occupies a central place in Jesus' teachings, not merely as a religious ritual, but as a practice that transforms the heart and mind. It is presented as a direct connection with God, an inexhaustible source of strength and comfort. In times of anxiety and uncertainty, prayer helps us find clarity, peace, and purpose. Jesus not only taught about prayer, but also exemplified it in his daily life. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 9, he offers the Lord's Prayer, a prayer that encapsulates the fundamental principles of Christian faith. This model of prayer is not just a collection of words, but a guide to align our thoughts and desires with God's will. It begins by acknowledging the holiness of God and his kingdom before requesting sustenance, forgiveness, and protection. This structure reflects the balance needed between adoration, gratitude, and dependence. Prayer is also presented as an essential tool for relieving the burden of emotional stress. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 5, verse 16, we read that Jesus often withdrew to solitary places to pray. These moments of solitude and communion with God allowed Jesus to renew his strength before facing the crowds or handling challenging situations. This practice teaches us that even in a hectic world, finding time for personal prayer is vital to maintaining emotional stability. One of the most powerful lessons on prayer was taught by Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane on the night before his crucifixion. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 26, verses 39 through 42, Jesus addresses the Father with sincerity and vulnerability, asking for the cup of suffering to pass from him but ultimately submitting to God's will. This prayer reveals that prayer is not merely about asking for what we want, but also about accepting God's will, finding peace amid adversity. From a psychological perspective, prayer has proven benefits for mental health. Studies show that it reduces stress, improves coping abilities, and promotes a more optimistic outlook. The practice of prayer helps us shift away from a problem-centered mindset, connecting us to something greater than ourselves. It invites us to hand over our worries to God, trusting that He is in control. Jesus also emphasized the importance of persistence in prayer. In the parable of the unjust judge, recorded in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 18, verses 1 through 8, he tells the story of a widow who seeks justice relentlessly. Although the judge is indifferent, he eventually gives in due to the woman's persistence. Jesus uses this story to remind us that God, who is just and loving, will hear our prayers, especially when we seek Him with faith and perseverance. Furthermore, Jesus taught that prayer is not a public display but an intimate dialogue with God. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 6 he says, "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen." This teaching encourages us to cultivate a personal relationship with God without seeking external recognition. Prayer, in this sense, is an act of humility and dependence. Prayer also helps us develop empathy and connection with others. Jesus often prayed for others, including His disciples and even those who persecuted Him. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 23, verse 34, He prays, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing," demonstrating the power of prayer to transform our hearts and attitudes. Finally, prayer prepares us to face life's challenges with courage and confidence. When we align our thoughts with God's, we become more resilient in the face of adversity. Prayer reminds us that we are not alone and that God is by our side, guiding and sustaining us every step of the way. Forgiveness, a cornerstone of mental and emotional freedom. Forgiveness is one of the most profound and transformative teachings of Jesus, offering a pathway to liberation from the burdens of anger, resentment, and bitterness. By embracing forgiveness, we not only follow Jesus' example but also unlock doors to emotional healing and peace. His teachings on this subject are as relevant today as they were 2,000 years ago. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 18, verses 21 through 22, Peter asks Jesus, "Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times." Jesus replies, "I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times." This response emphasizes that forgiveness should be limitless, a continual act of grace rather than a one-time decision. Jesus teaches that forgiveness is not about keeping score, but about fostering a heart of compassion and mercy. Forgiveness is central to the Lord's Prayer, where Jesus instructs us to pray, "Forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors." This line, found in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 12, reveals a reciprocal relationship between receiving forgiveness from God and extending it to others. It underscores the idea that harboring unforgiveness not only harms relationships with others, but also disrupts our connection with God. One of the most striking examples of forgiveness in action comes from Jesus' own life. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 23, verse 34, as Jesus hangs on the cross, suffering immense physical pain and emotional betrayal, he prays for his persecutors, saying, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." This moment encapsulates the depth of Jesus' compassion and his call for us to rise above our grievances. From a psychological perspective, forgiveness has been shown to reduce stress, anxiety, and depression while improving overall well-being. Holding on to anger or resentment keeps us trapped in a cycle of negativity, but forgiveness allows us to release these toxic emotions and move forward. Jesus' teachings on forgiveness align with modern research, illustrating the profound impact of this practice on our mental health. In the parable of the unforgiving servant, found in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 18, verses 23 through 35, Jesus highlights the dangers of failing to forgive. The story tells of a servant who is forgiven a massive debt by his master, but refuses to forgive a fellow servant who owes him a small amount. The master's anger at the unforgiving servant serves as a stark reminder of the importance of showing the same mercy to others that we hope to receive. Forgiveness does not mean condoning wrongdoing or forgetting the harm done. Instead, it is a deliberate choice to let go of resentment and wish the best for those who have hurt us. This practice is not always easy, but Jesus' teachings remind us that forgiveness is as much for our benefit as for the person being forgiven. It frees our hearts from the chains of bitterness, allowing us to live more fully. Jesus also emphasizes reconciliation as an essential aspect of forgiveness. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 23 through 24, he advises, "If you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to them. Then come and offer your gift." This teaching highlights the importance of repairing relationships as a precursor to worship and spiritual growth. Forgiveness is a journey that often requires time, reflection, and prayer. Jesus encourages us to seek God's help in this process, trusting that He will soften our hearts and guide us toward healing. By forgiving others, we reflect God's love and grace, becoming vessels of His mercy in a world that desperately needs it. Humility, the pathway to true inner peace. Humility is a recurring theme in Jesus' teachings, offering a countercultural perspective that challenges pride and self-centeredness. In a world often focused on self-promotion and status, Jesus presents humility as the foundation for a fulfilling and peaceful life. His words and actions show that humility is not a sign of weakness but a profound strength that fosters self-awareness, compassion, and genuine relationships. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 23, verse 12, Jesus says, "For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted." This statement highlights the paradox of humility. By lowering ourselves, we find true elevation in God's eyes. Jesus teaches that humility is not about self-deprecation, but about recognizing our dependence on God and valuing others above ourselves. One of the most powerful demonstrations of humility comes during the Last Supper, when Jesus washes the feet of His disciples. This act, recorded in the Gospel of John, chapter 13, verses 12 through 15, defies cultural norms and expectations. As their teacher and Lord, Jesus takes on the role of a servant, setting an example of humility and service for His followers. He tells them, "Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet." Humility also involves acknowledging our limitations and weaknesses, which allows us to rely on God's strength rather than our own. The Apostle Paul echoes this sentiment in his second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 12, verse 9. "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Jesus' life exemplifies this principle, as He often withdrew to pray and seek God's guidance, demonstrating His dependence on the Father. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus begins with the Beatitudes, declaring, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." This phrase, found in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 3, underscores the importance of humility in our spiritual lives. To be poor in spirit means to recognize our need for God and to approach Him with a humble and contrite heart. From a psychological perspective, humility fosters resilience by helping us navigate challenges with grace and openness. It allows us to learn from our mistakes, accept constructive feedback, and build stronger connections with others. By embracing humility, we free ourselves from the burdens of pride and ego, creating space for personal growth and inner peace. Jesus' teachings on humility extend to our interactions with others. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 20, verses 25 through 28, He tells His disciples, "Whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give His life as a ransom for many." This call to servant leadership challenges societal norms and encourages us to prioritize the needs of others. Humility also plays a crucial role in forgiveness and reconciliation. By humbling ourselves, we can acknowledge our mistakes and seek to mend broken relationships. Jesus emphasizes this in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 18, verses 15 through 17, where he outlines steps for resolving conflicts within the community. Humility enables us to approach these situations with empathy and a willingness to listen. In a broader sense, humility allows us to see the world through God's perspective, appreciating the beauty and value of creation. It reminds us that we are stewards of the earth and caretakers of one another. By cultivating humility, we align ourselves with God's will and become instruments of His peace in a fractured world. The power of service, redefining leadership and purpose. Service stands at the heart of Jesus' teachings, challenging conventional notions of power, leadership, and success. In a world often driven by personal ambition and the pursuit of status, Jesus flips the script by emphasizing that true greatness is found in serving others. His life and words reveal that service is not merely an act of kindness but a profound expression of love, humility, and purpose. One of the most striking lessons on service comes from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 20, verses 25 through 28. Jesus tells his disciples, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." This statement redefines leadership as a commitment to the well-being of others, rooted in selflessness and love. The washing of the disciples' feet during the Last Supper, recorded in the Gospel of John, chapter 13, verses 12 through 15, further underscores Jesus' emphasis on service. By performing this humble act, Jesus demonstrates that no task is beneath those who seek to lead with love and compassion. He sets a powerful example for his followers, instructing them to do as I have done for you. This moment serves as a timeless reminder that serving others is a cornerstone of Christian living. Service also cultivates a sense of purpose and fulfillment, as it allows us to contribute to something greater than ourselves. By meeting the needs of others, we find meaning and joy, even in the simplest acts of kindness. This aligns with the teachings of Jesus in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 6, verse 38, where he says, "Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you." Through service, we experience the reciprocal blessings of generosity and gratitude. From a psychological perspective, service has been shown to enhance mental health and well-being. Studies reveal that acts of kindness release endorphins, reduce stress, and increase feelings of happiness and connection. By following Jesus' example of service, we not only enrich the lives of others, but also nurture our own emotional and spiritual health. Jesus' parable of the Good Samaritan, found in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10, verses 25 through 37, provides a vivid illustration of selfless service. In this story, a Samaritan goes out of his way to help a wounded stranger, despite cultural and social barriers. Jesus concludes the parable with a powerful call to action: "Go and do likewise." This directive challenges us to transcend prejudice and inconvenience, extending love and care to all people, regardless of their background. Service is also a reflection of God's love working through us. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 25, verses 35 through 40, Jesus explains that acts of kindness toward others are acts of love toward Him. "For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in." This passage reminds us that serving others is a sacred act, imbued with eternal significance. Moreover, service fosters a sense of community and interconnectedness. By working together to meet the needs of others, we build relationships based on trust, empathy, and mutual support. This aligns with Jesus' prayer for unity among his followers, recorded in the Gospel of John, chapter 17, verse 21. That all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. The freedom of forgiveness, healing hearts and restoring relationships. Forgiveness is one of the most profound and transformative teachings of Jesus. It is not merely a suggestion but a cornerstone of his message, emphasizing the importance of releasing resentment, seeking reconciliation, and cultivating a heart aligned with God's grace. Through his words and actions, Jesus reveals that forgiveness is a pathway to freedom, healing, and spiritual renewal. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verses 14 and 15, Jesus makes a powerful declaration. For if you forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their sins, your Father will not forgive your sins. This teaching underscores the reciprocal nature of forgiveness. It is both a gift we give and a grace we receive. It challenges us to extend mercy, even when it feels undeserved, as a reflection of the boundless forgiveness we have received from God. The parable of the unforgiving servant, found in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 18, verses 21 through 35, illustrates the necessity of forgiveness in vivid detail. In this story, a servant is forgiven a massive debt by his master, but refuses to forgive a much smaller debt owed to him by a fellow servant. When the master learns of this, he rebukes the servant, highlighting the hypocrisy of receiving forgiveness while withholding it from others. This parable serves as a stark reminder that forgiveness is not optional, but an integral part of our spiritual journey. Forgiveness is not just a moral obligation, it is a gift we give to ourselves. Holding on to anger and bitterness can weigh heavily on our hearts, creating barriers to peace and joy. Studies in psychology affirm that forgiveness reduces stress, lowers blood pressure, and improves overall mental health. By letting go of resentment, we free ourselves from the emotional chains that bind us, opening the door to healing and renewal. Jesus demonstrated the ultimate act of forgiveness on the cross. As he endured unimaginable suffering, he prayed for those who persecuted him, saying, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing," as recorded in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 23, verse 34. This moment exemplifies the depth of Jesus' love and the radical nature of his forgiveness. It challenges us to extend mercy, even in the face of pain and injustice. Forgiveness is also a key to restoring broken relationships. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 23 and 24, Jesus teaches, "Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First, go and be reconciled to them. Then come and offer your gift." This instruction highlights the importance of prioritizing reconciliation in our relationships, demonstrating that forgiveness is an act of worship and obedience. One of the barriers to forgiveness is the misconception that it condones wrongdoing or minimizes our pain. However, forgiveness is not about excusing harm but about releasing the power it holds over us. It is a declaration that we will not allow bitterness to dictate our lives. In forgiving others, we reclaim our freedom and align ourselves with God's redemptive plan. Forgiveness also fosters empathy and compassion. When we recognize our own need for grace, we are better equipped to extend it to others. The Apostle Paul echoes this sentiment in his letter to the Ephesians, chapter 4, verse 32, "Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you." By embracing forgiveness, we reflect the heart of Christ and create a ripple effect of love and healing in our communities. The power of prayer, connecting with God and strengthening the Spirit. Prayer stands as one of the most profound and personal teachings of Jesus. Throughout his life, he modeled prayer as the cornerstone of his relationship with God, illustrating its power to transform hearts, strengthen faith, and navigate the complexities of life. In Jesus' teachings, prayer is not a mere ritual, but a lifeline connecting humanity to the divine. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verses 9 through 13, Jesus offers the Lord's Prayer, an unparalleled guide to approaching God with reverence, trust, and vulnerability. He begins with, "Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name," acknowledging God's sovereignty and holiness. This prayer teaches us to seek God's will, trust His provision, and align our hearts with His purposes. Each phrase encapsulates a vital aspect of our relationship with God, reminding us of our dependence on Him for both spiritual and physical sustenance. Jesus emphasized the importance of prayer as a source of strength during challenging times. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 22, verse 42, we find Jesus praying in the Garden of Gethsemane before his arrest. He prays, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will but yours be done." This moment of surrender exemplifies the vulnerability and courage that prayer can inspire. Even in moments of immense anguish, Jesus turned to prayer to seek guidance and strength, showing us that prayer is a refuge in times of uncertainty. One of the unique aspects of Jesus' teachings on prayer is his emphasis on authenticity. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 6, he instructs, "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." This teaching highlights that prayer is not about public display or eloquence, but about a sincere and personal connection with God. It encourages us to approach God with humility, knowing that He values our hearts over our words. Jesus also highlighted the transformative power of persistent prayer. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 18, verses 1 through 8, he shares the parable of the persistent widow, who continually petitions a judge until she receives justice. Through this story, Jesus teaches us not to lose heart in prayer, emphasizing that persistence demonstrates faith and trust in God's timing. It reassures us that God hears our prayers, even when answers seem delayed. Prayer is not only a means of seeking God's intervention, but also a way to cultivate gratitude and alignment with His will. In the Gospel of John, chapter 11, verse 41, before raising Lazarus from the dead, Jesus begins by saying, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me." This moment underscores that gratitude in prayer is an acknowledgement of God's faithfulness and a reflection of our trust in His sovereignty. In addition to individual prayer, Jesus encouraged communal prayer as a way to strengthen collective faith. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 18, verse 20, he states, "For where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them." This teaching reminds us of the power of unity in prayer and the presence of God among His people. It encourages us to support one another through prayer, fostering a sense of community and shared purpose. Jesus' teachings on prayer also emphasize forgiveness as a critical component of our relationship with God. In the Gospel of Mark, chapter 11, verse 25, he advises, "And when you stand praying, if you hold anything against anyone, forgive them, so that your Father in heaven may forgive you your sins." This instruction highlights that prayer is not only a dialogue with God, but also a call to reconcile with others, aligning our actions with His grace. The teachings of humility, embracing greatness through servanthood. Humility is one of the most profound yet challenging principles taught by Jesus. Through His words and actions, He redefined greatness, presenting servanthood and humility as the foundation of true leadership and fulfillment. In a world that often equates power with dominance, Jesus' teachings on humility provide a transformative perspective that leads to inner peace and harmony. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 23, verse 11, Jesus declares, "The greatest among you will be your servant." This statement encapsulates the essence of humility, emphasizing that true greatness is found in serving others rather than seeking self-promotion. By shifting the focus from personal ambition to the well-being of others, Jesus invites us to adopt a posture of humility that reflects God's love. One of the most vivid examples of humility in action is found in the Gospel of John, chapter 13, verses 4 through 15, where Jesus washes the feet of His disciples. This act, traditionally performed by servants, demonstrated his willingness to lower himself in service to others. As he explains in verse 14, "Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet." This moment serves as a powerful reminder that humility is not about diminishing our worth, but about elevating others through acts of love and kindness. Jesus also addressed the dangers of pride and self-righteousness, urging his followers to adopt a humble attitude. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 18, verses 9 through 14, he shares the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector. The Pharisee boasts about his righteousness, while the tax collector humbly acknowledges his sins, saying, "God, have mercy on me, a sinner." Jesus concludes, "For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted." This teaching underscores the importance of humility in our relationship with God, reminding us that recognition of our dependence on Him is the key to spiritual growth. Humility also plays a crucial role in fostering unity and harmony within communities. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 5, Jesus proclaims, "Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth." This beatitude highlights the value of gentleness and humility in creating a world where compassion and understanding prevail. It challenges us to prioritize reconciliation and selflessness, cultivating relationships built on respect and mutual care. Through his life, Jesus demonstrated that humility is not a sign of weakness but a source of strength. He willingly embraced a life of simplicity and sacrifice, choosing to be born in a manger and associating with those marginalized by society. His ultimate act of humility is seen in the Gospel of Philippians, chapter 2, verses 5 through 8, where Paul writes, "He humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross." This profound act of love exemplifies the depth of his humility and its transformative power. In practical terms, humility involves a mindset of gratitude and an openness to learning from others. Jesus encouraged his followers to adopt a childlike attitude, as seen in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 18, verse 4. "Whoever takes the lowly position of this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven." This teaching invites us to approach life with wonder, trust, and humility, embracing the wisdom and simplicity of a child. As we reflect on Jesus' teachings about humility, we are reminded that true greatness lies in putting others before ourselves and seeking God's glory above our own. This countercultural approach challenges societal norms, but offers a path to deeper fulfillment and purpose. Love as the cornerstone, building a life of resilience and peace. As we conclude our journey through the teachings of Jesus, it is fitting to end with the principle that underpins his entire ministry: love. Jesus' message of unconditional love is not only the foundation of his teachings but also the ultimate key to mental health, resilience, and a life of lasting peace. In a world filled with division, anxiety, and strife, his call to love others as he loved us remains as transformative and relevant as ever. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 22, verses 37 through 39, Jesus declares, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself." These two commandments summarize the essence of his teachings, demonstrating that love is both the foundation of our relationship with God and the guiding principle for our interactions with others. One of the most profound examples of Jesus' love is found in the Gospel of John, chapter 15, verse 13, where he states, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." This sacrificial love, ultimately exemplified through his death on the cross, reveals the depth of his compassion and commitment to humanity. It challenges us to embrace a selfless love that seeks the good of others, even at great personal cost. Jesus also taught that love has the power to overcome fear, hatred, and despair. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 6, verses 27 through 36, he commands us to love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. This radical call to love, even in the face of opposition, invites us to break the cycle of anger and retaliation, replacing it with forgiveness and compassion. The Apostle Paul, reflecting on Jesus' teachings, provides a powerful description of love in the first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 13, verses 4 through 7. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. These qualities of love offer a blueprint for building relationships and communities grounded in trust and mutual respect. Jesus emphasized that love is not merely an emotion but an action. In the parable of the Good Samaritan, found in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10, verses 25 through 37, he illustrates that love involves going beyond societal boundaries to care for those in need. This teaching challenges us to see every person as our neighbor and to respond to their needs with generosity and compassion. Love also serves as a source of healing and restoration. In the Gospel of John, chapter 8, verses 1 through 11, Jesus shows mercy to a woman caught in adultery, declaring, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." His response demonstrates that love offers second chances and seeks to uplift rather than condemn. This act of grace reminds us that love has the power to transform lives and bring hope to the brokenhearted. Ultimately, love is the cornerstone that unites all the principles we have explored throughout this journey. Gratitude, humility, forgiveness, faith, and resilience all flow from a heart grounded in love. Jesus' teachings show us that love is the key to overcoming challenges, building meaningful relationships, and finding lasting peace. As we reflect on his words, let us strive to embody his love in our daily lives, extending it to ourselves, our neighbors, and even our enemies. By doing so, we not only experience the transformative power of his teachings, but also become instruments of his peace in a world that desperately needs it. Thank you for joining this journey into the teachings of Jesus. If this message has inspired you, consider sharing this video, subscribing to our channel, and turning on notifications so you can continue exploring these timeless truths with us. Together, let us live lives filled with love, resilience, and purpose.